They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
Welcome to the Rallyman celebration of acceleration. Today we'll see historic cars in action around the Goodwood circuit, rally legends tear through the forest stage, and a bunch of supercars setting their fastest times up the hill. So grab your favourites, pick an event or two and show us what can be done. Over the past 3 decades, Goodwood has gone from an abandoned racing track to a now iconic weekend of 150,000 spectators engaging and interacting with spectacular cars from the past, present and possible future. The main attraction is the Hillclimb at the Festival of Speed. Most of the cars have no hope of setting fast times, and some of them aren't even allowed to try on safety grounds, so much of the Hillclimb takes the form of an exhibition of exotic cars from the last century of motoring. Today we're making use of varying levels of Dr. Worm's NPCs to set some benchmarks for you to test yourself against on a climb that can be made using just the tiles from Rallyman GT. Once you've reached the top of the hill, off into the trees to your right is the Forest Rally stage. Perhaps hidden away, but definitely an event worth watching. Another 6 NPCs will be setting stage times for you to knock out of the park on your next visit to Goodwood, and you'll need some expansions for Rallyman Dirt to make it happen. Having been revamped thanks to the success of the early festivals, the reopened Goodwood circuit now sees regular events, notably the Goodwood Revival, where cars that would have competed during the circuit's original opening can race once again. Everyone is even encouraged to dress up as though it's still the 1950s. And so, to conclude our celebration of acceleration, 6 more NPCs are behind the wheels of some absolute classics of motor racing around this Rallyman recreation by Xavier, again only using core GT tiles. Which event takes your fancy? Can you beat some NPCs up the hill or through the forest? Care to place a friendly wager on the outcome of the Revival race? Let's get this celebration underway so that you've got some times to beat. Here we are at the Goodwood Festival of Speed Hillclimb, or a version of it at any rate. I'll leave it to you to come up with an even more authentic recreation. Your running order for today is on screen, a right mix of car classes from Rallyman GT and Rallyman Dirt. All cars are on their standard asphalt tyres for the sake of simplicity, but if you want to increase the difficulty of the NPCs, I suggest putting them onto soft tyres for what will surely be a quick run up the hill. How will this running order change once everyone is finished? Let's find out as the red GT6 rolls an awful lot of hazards, but because they are difficulty 9, they are re-rolling 4 dice. Now they only have 2 hazards, so they are able to start things off like this, coasting up to the first corner, into 3rd, out in 4th, up to 5th. They can't get up to 6th. There's a gear 4 corner ahead of them. They have nothing to re-roll, so they have lots of dice to work with. They are going to want to be in as high a gear at the end of this straight as they can. Do they have enough brakes? Yes, they do. So if they can get there in 6th, that will be good for them. Let's see if we can do it. We would need a couple of coasts and a 2. 4, 3, 2, 1 on the brakes. Gives them a run like that. That will put them into this space in 6th gear. On its 3rd turn, we are re-rolling that die. And that's a full set of dice to work with again. Let's break down to 2nd gear. It'll be our only hazard for this turn. And then we can, let's see, if we want to be in 6th here, if we can. Coast, 3, 4, 5, 1 space short. A couple of gears to re-roll. and it's not done well on its brakes. So can we get through these next few corners without using too many hazards? Let's see. The best that they can do is that as they come to this space in 5th gear. Now coming up to the last tile, you have an option when you're doing this track to either reuse the start line, just make sure you are traveling 3 spaces before you cross it, or you can just end on the edge of the tile as we've got it laid out here. That'll be similar to Rallyman of old, where you just run off the stage and not worry about there being a printed finish line. I'm going to plan out as much distance as I can because I think, there we are, we can get all the way down to 1st gear with our brakes, just the one hazard. They can get through that final corner and then cross the finish line in 6th gear. Next up is the yellow R6 coming in from the Rally World. This R6 is re-rolling the highest 3 dice that show hazards. It's going to want to do much the same as the GT6. Right, second turn for the yellow R6. Hasn't lost control, but that was an awful lot of hazards. It can only re-roll those 3. Luckily for it, the hazards on the 1 and the 2 probably won't come into play, as it won't be able to break down that far anyway. Unfortunately, breaking down to 3 was 1 hazard. It can come out in 4. It can go up to 6th, but 5th gear was its 2nd hazard. It can coast past the front of Goodwood House in 6th. They are going to finish turn 3 in 4th gear. Re-rolling that die. Full set of dice to work with. They can break down to 2nd gear as they want to, and they are going to get as much distance as they can to end there in gear 6. Lots of hazards. They're going to re-roll those 3. Gets rid of a couple of them. Right, they're in 6th gear. They need to be in 5th in order to break down to gear 3. That is 1 hazard. They can coast through, come out in 4th there. Can they get over the finish line? They want to be there in 6th. Let's go backwards to see if we can make it. They don't have to worry about hazards. They do have to break down to 2nd gear, but 1 unused die and a 6th gear finish will end their run up the hill. Up next is the purple GT5. Loads of brakes and a boost die to work with. They won't be able to hit 6th gear, but I think they'll get to 5th gear pretty consistently. They haven't used their boost die yet. They haven't needed to. No, they don't need to boost at all. Can they do 5 turns of gear 5? Ooh, bad turn for them. We only have 4 dice that don't show hazards. They are going to finish in 5th gear. Next up then is the blue R6. So once again, we are going to head towards 5th gear and come up to 6th gear. I think it's going to be better to go through the corner. We're going to re-roll. No, we're not. We're going to lose control. Hazards on the 2, 3 and 4. So the blue R6 has spun out. They have a green flag. They have another green flag. At least they're not getting too damaged. They have a green flag. It must mean that all the green flags are at the top of the damage bag. Good job for the blue R6 on that front. They're going to end there in 6th gear as they limp to the finish line. Next up is the green GT6. We know what the opening move is going to be. They are going to end their turn 10 seconds down the road. They won't be able to end in too high a gear on this round. Puts them in 5th gear after the flint wall. Can they make it across the line? Yes, they can. As we find out what our final competitor can do, the green R5, they are difficulty 4, which means they take the highest gear that does not show a hazard and re-roll it. It doesn't affect them on this turn. Next round, they again have quite a few dice to work with, so they want to be in 5th gear somewhere down there. They can break down to gear 3, and that's 1 hazard, and coast to coast is their 2nd hazard, 2, and then boost up to 4, and then out in 5th. They are rolling very well, full set of dice to work with. If they want to take that corner, they need to be in 2nd there and in 4th gear there, coasting like that, coasting there, out in 3rd and boost up to 5th. Let's see if this good rolling continues. It sort of does. A couple of hazards, should be able to work around them. Once again, can they engineer a way of getting through as much of this as they can? They are going to need to be in 2nd, coast to coast, 4th, and then they need to break to 2. So with 2 hazards, they can do it. Might be on for a surprising time. It's certainly rolling pretty well, although I have just given it another hazard. Finish another turn in 5th gear, right before the home straight. A 5th gear finish for the green R5. Let's tot up the times and see who has gone up Goodwood Hillclimb quicker than everybody else. It's not going to be the blue R6, but let's see what times have been set for you to beat. In 1st is the red GT6, the only car to dip under the 1 minute mark today with a time of 54 seconds. The green GT6 isn't too far behind in 1 minute and 5. 3rd place goes to the yellow R6 with a time of 1 minute 14, which seems to suggest that finishing in 6th gear on this climb is going to be key to your success. The next 2 places are split by just a single second, the green R5 finishing the climb in 1 minute 23, the purple R5 in 1 minute 24. Very consistent, but can they go much quicker? Finally, of course, is the blue R6, showing us the obvious that crashing out is not good for your time. Try not to do that in your own timed runs as we head into the forest for some off-road action. It's time for the Forest Rally, and as you can see, it's on the large side. I actually separated each car by 2 turns rather than just 1 to give them more of an opportunity to set stage times without getting held up. Even with that, however, it was nearly half an hour of gaming before the final car made it to the start line, hence the highlight package for this event. So the cars are setting off in order of NPC difficulty, the red R5 at difficulty 9 leading the way, all the way down to the green R4 at difficulty 4. We'll assume the course has been swept, so nobody is considered to be on leader dice. And what is immediately obvious is just how good a start the R4 cars get compared to the R5s, eating up the distance, albeit at the cost of time, as demonstrated by our 2 professionals here. On this turn, however, the yellow R4 has picked up a post-race penalty of some as yet unknown form. Playing back the tape, they dropped down from 4th gear into 1st using just 1 brake die, and there was just no way of recalculating what might have happened from there on. So I think we'll see what the final stage times are before working out what we might want to do. As it happened, catching up to a faster car and not being able to overtake them does act as a penalty of sorts, but there was an opportunity to pass when a lax die placement by the red R5 left space on the inside for the yellow R4 to slip in and take turn order. From there, it was an uneventful dash to the line for both of them. Behind them, by some way it felt, was the yellow R5 in a world of its own. It couldn't catch up and it wasn't threatened by anyone behind. The only stumbling block of its run was mistaking a small path for a turn and putting their car into the trees. No damage, but it still cost a bit of time. The story of the purple R5 and blue R4 is one of a car struggling to drive as well as it should, and a car constantly getting blocked by a car struggling to drive as well as it should. Luck wasn't with the R4, and there was never a chance to overtake the R5 ahead of it. I don't know how much time it lost compared to a cleaner run, but it sure felt like it was being held back. Finally, the green R4 minding its own business really. It made a couple of strange decisions perhaps, but because it wasn't held up or compromised with bad turns, it was just passing the time before crossing the finish line. Having to re-roll its highest gear die that didn't show a hazard didn't affect it too much in the end, if at all. But what times have we set for you to try your luck against? The red R5 finishes fastest in a final stage time once all the seconds have been deducted of 4 minutes and 50. In second place is the yellow R4. Despite overtaking the leader, it ended up with a total time of 5 minutes 12. But again, that's got an asterisk next to it thanks to its illegal dice placement halfway through the stage. What penalty would you give it? 7 of its turns were affected by the mistake, so maybe 5 seconds per turn for an additional 35 seconds. Maybe you'll smash their time, penalty or not. So on to our third place finisher, the yellow R5, with a time of 5 minutes and 25 seconds. In fourth place is the green R4 with 5 minutes and 56. Fifth sees the purple R5 come home in 6 minutes and 5. And a distant sixth place, thanks to being held up so much, is the blue R4 with a disappointing 7 minutes and 51 seconds. There are your Forest Rally times. Whereabouts do you think you'll end up? I'll leave that for you to find out as we head back down the hill and over the road for the Rallyman Revival. We have randomly chosen the grid for this one-lap race. The yellow GT5 finds itself in second place. There are no real low-speed corners on this track, so the lack of a brake die on the BOP dashboard probably won't come into play. So I'm going to go for the yellow GT5 to win. We have the green GT4 kicking us off, so no boost and no gear 5 for their dice pool. And that's going to be tricky for them to get the distance and the speed. So they can only get that far in fourth gear. Behind them is the GT5, and they are going to try to overtake as soon as possible, which they are able to do as they cut to the inside, overtaking on the first turn of the race. Next up is the blue GT4. Can it get close to the green car? It's going to hope so. Wants to end there. However, the hazards on a couple of coast die means it is instead only going to make it this far. The red GT4 is next up, and they have got a whole load of hazards. They have lost control with hazards on 2, 3 and 4, and they've got a couple of hazards on their coast die as well. So I hope none of you have placed a bet on this car. Now they don't know they're going to lose control until the end of their turn, so they are going to try to do something like this. They are going to spin out off the track into gear 00, the worst of starts. Next up is the red GT5. They have also got a whole load of hazards to work with. However, they have not lost control. Luckily, their gear 3 did not show a hazard, but they are going to have to work something special out. The best they can do is end in third. So finally, the orange GT5, can he capitalize on all of this carnage? Not lost control, and plenty of dice to work with. That was a 1 and a 1. Needs to be in third gear to overtake the red GT5, and the dice can get it up here in gear 5. Next round then, turn order is with the yellow GT5. They have not lost control, and they have an awful lot of dice to make use of. be that way, that way, that way, that way. There we are. We eventually got there. The yellow GT5 tears out ahead as the orange GT5 tries to catch up with it. No loss of control, only a couple of hazards, so it's able to do much the same, I think. It's going to want to end here because it can't break down to gear 1 to take the inside line, as it puts itself in second place. Next up is the green GT4. It is going to coast, coast, coast. Can't overtake the orange car, so it's going to keep the inside in gear 4. Behind it is the blue GT4. And they also haven't lost control. They're going to want to be in gear 4 there to come alongside the green car. That is easily done for them. Behind them in third gear is the red GT5. Hopefully they will have a better turn. Lots of hazards on their high gears, however, makes that quite difficult. Drop down to first gear and then coast out. Second, the most they can do is fourth gear. That puts them behind the green GT4 as the red GT4 turns a 00 into a 0. The yellow GT5 hasn't lost control. It wants to be here in fifth. Let's first break down to gear 2 to obey the speed limit in this corner. That's one hazard for the turn. Gear 3 will be its second hazard, and it can do something like that. The orange car behind it hasn't lost control and has quite a few dice itself. Now, it's going to have to break down to second gear, which it can do there. It can then coast out. It can coast out again because it hasn't reached a hazard limit or anything. Drop down to 1, boost up to 3, and then out behind the yellow car in fifth gear. Next up is the green GT4. No loss of control. It's going to break down to first gear and then coast through corners into second. Its second hazard. It can come out there in fourth gear, maintains its speed once again, and takes the inside lane of the upcoming corner to try and keep turn order from the blue GT4 that is next in line to go. Lots of hazards for it, however. It has not lost control, but it has some work to do. It's going to break down to gear 1. It's going to coast through. It can't use its final coast because of the hazard, so it can get up here in fourth gear, and that will put it in the middle of the track to make the red GT5 have a bit more of a difficult time to overtake it through the corners. It'll have to go the long way in order to do that. Let's see if it can do it on this turn or if it sets itself up for a future turn. It's going to use the long spaces to get to the first corner. It puts itself there in fifth in the middle of the track to pounce on the cars ahead of it. And finally, the red GT4 at the back of the pack. It's able to go all the way up to fourth gear. Next round, the yellow GT5 has turn order. It needs to break down to second gear, which it can comfortably do. It can coast out. It can drop to first and boost out in third, and then sit on the apex of the next corner in fifth gear. A mighty use of its dice to extend its lead. The orange car will have to wait another turn in order to try and catch up. Let's see how it rolls. It's going to be a little short thanks to hazards on its dice, so it can go into 5th gear there. Next up is the red GT5. Manages to take turn order from the cars in front of it. No loss of control, but a few hazards to work with. It's going to need to be in at least gear 4 here and a coast there. It can break down to gear 3 comfortably enough. It could not use its coast because of hazards, so it has to go into 2nd, boost out in 4th, coast through the cars and emerge in 5th gear on the inside lane. The green GT4 is blocked. The blue GT4 being able to go 1 space, and then finally the red GT4 has an opportunity to catch up, breaks down to 1st, coasts through and out in 4th. We are into the next round. So yellow GT5 wants to maintain that lead. It's going to, I think, be able to move as far as it can, although I'm going to have to check that with some hazards right in the middle. I think then it is 1 short of the best move that it can make. So this is the 2nd best move that it can make. It looks set for a victory. Can the orange car have anything to say about that as we roll its dice and find out? I think it can catch up, but not quite overtake. So let's put some coasts down, get us through the corner, brake into 2nd gear. Probably wants to stay in 5th gear to keep it ahead of the red car behind it. It has not lost control. A few hazards to work around, however, including one on the brake dice and one on a gear 3, one on its other coast, and I think the best it can do is end there in 4th, meaning that it may well be swallowed up by the GT4s behind it. The green GT4 is going to coast, break down to gear 1. That's its one and only hazard. It's going to come there in 1st. It wants to be there in 4th. So it has to go the long way to do that. So it's stolen turn order from the GT5 and the comeback is on. Can the blue car keep up? No loss of control. Quite a few hazards, however. It can coast into the corner. It wants to be there in 4th, there in 3rd. However, it can't make use of enough of its dice to get there. And that is the best that it can do, hopefully making life difficult for the red GT4. Let's find out. No loss of control as we coast through the corner. We can go over there in 4th gear. That would take turn order from the blue car. New round, the yellow car wants to try and make it through the chicane. A couple of hazards on its high gears. Let's try to get it away from the orange car as far as we can. Can it get here in 5th gear. If it boosts out the corner like that, it will have to make use of gear 4 there and a brake die over here in order to put it on the inside for the last corner. Strong position. Can the orange car find a way to overtake it? It is potentially now or never. The next car is the green GT4. Can it get away from the red GT5? It absolutely can. The red GT5 behind it has, unfortunately, got a load of hazards to work with. Try to end in 5th gear if we can. It doesn't need to worry about position on the track because the cars behind it can't get up to 5th gear. The red GT4 is moving 7 places, assuming the red car ahead of it will not block it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the most amount of spaces it can get. The blue GT4 is going to do much the same. So it's the last turn for some of these cars, probably, as the yellow car doesn't lose control and has an awful lot of dice to work with in order to get across the finish line. It's going to try to do that as soon as it can. It is across the line for a first place finish. Anyone who bets on that car, good job. The red GT5 is next. Has lost control, however. It's going to maintain its speed to overtake the green GT4. It's going to dip down to second in order to hit the apex. It will come out in third in order to then boost up to 5th gear, and then it finds itself losing control. 1 coast die damage. Its chances of finishing third have rapidly diminished as we head into the orange GT5's turn. Can they secure second? Most likely. No loss of control and lots of dice to work with. So they are going to drop down to 1st gear, obey the speed limits of that corner. They're going to coast out through in 2, 3, 4. They haven't yet crossed the line. They are in 5th gear on the home straight. We are going to find out what the green GT4 can do. It wants to take 3rd place, of course. Can it do that? Let's find out. It can break down to 1st. It can coast out like that. It could get to 2nd there. It doesn't want to do that really. So it is going to instead break down to gear 3. Coast, 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 and then finish in 4th over there. What can the red GT4 do? It's taken turn order from blue. It can move 7 spaces as well. No speed limits to worry about. It's right behind the green car that it's competing with. And the blue GT4 at the back of the pack can also move 7 spaces. Whole pack of them there fighting over 3rd place. Can the orange GT5 finish? It has not lost control and it can coast over the line in 5th gear for a 2nd place finish. The green GT4 is going to defend its 3rd place. I think it's going to break all the way down to 1 to coast through and then come out towards the inside lane. Not quite across the line this time. The red GT4 has hazards to work with. It can coast, it can brake to 2, and it can coast there. It can coast there, and it can sit on the apex in 3rd. That is the best that it can do. Let's find out what the blue car can do. No loss of control, more dice to work with. It needs to be in 3rd gear there. Some coasts there. 2nd gear there, and 1 hazard on the brakes there. Will allow it to get up into 4th gear on this space. And finally, the red GT5 comes back onto the track in gear 0. The outcome from there was quite predictable, each GT4 finishing in turn order and the red GT5 coming in a distant 6th. Did you guess the winner? It was probably a safe bet to pick the yellow GT5, but who would have thought that the orange GT5 nearly pulled off a last to first challenge? Good job if you had more faith in that car than I did. And that's going to be it for the celebration of acceleration. We've seen 18 cars in action, 4 more stuck on twist tyres, and you've got 12 target times to smash with your own choice of car. Do you build a Hillclimb monster using an unlimited dashboard? Do you think the R6s will be able to make it through the forest stage more efficiently? Whatever you do, make sure you're having fun with Rallyman.